As a photographer, I feel like I'm on the wrong side of the lens at the moment. I should be on that side. But here we are, and you're going to have to forgive me for looking down every now and again at my notes. That's what I kind of do. I first want to welcome everyone in the room and everyone online to the Phillips collection at the Arc. I'd personally like to thank the Phillips collection for supporting and showing my work, Portraits of Resilience. I'd like to recognise Leonce and the team at TASSC International for who I've been collaborating with. Most of all, I would like to recognise the survivors that I've photographed. Your bravery and courage are resounding, and I hope that my photos do your stories justice. The format of this artist talk is slightly different tonight. I'm going to begin by talking about myself and the series of portraits. I will then hand you over to Alysha Tagert, the Acting Director of TASSC International, who will give you an insight into the work that they do. We then have Safi and Hajir, who will talk a little bit about their experiences and what the work means to them. At the end, we have a Q&A session. I've worked as a photojournalist and a humanitarian photographer. In fact, I'm extremely diverse as a photographer, photographing everything from editorial to charity work alongside corporate photography and portraiture. I don't think that this dilutes my focus. In fact, I think it's a strength for the organisations that I work with and for my position in the world of photography. Whilst humanitarian photography is inherently different to photojournalism, due to the boundaries of their individual institutions, I believe that the photographer's intent is ultimately the same. Humanitarian photography strives to raise awareness for the issues that an NGO is trying to resolve, showcasing the work that they are doing, which often has the dual purpose of supporting advocacy of policy change and generating revenue for them. It is important to note that humanitarian photographers represent the interests of the organisations that they work with. This places an ethical burden on them. They are often photographing vulnerable people in sensitive situations where the pictures should not be considered more important than the dignity of those present. I've always worked with NGOs. They are challenging to work with, underpaid or voluntary. I often damage or break equipment on assignments due to the conditions of wherever I am. The hours are long and I am away from the family. However, there is something incredibly rewarding about the photography, humbling about the people who allow me to photograph them, and I enjoy the challenges of having to think on my feet and come away with pictures that I hope will make a difference. I try to apply the ethical code of photojournalism while remembering that I'm there as a humanitarian photographer representing the non-profit organisation. This means understanding the organisation's objectives and being sensitive to the people that I photograph. Often not knowing when not to photograph and observing is more important than photographing. I feel it important to work with organisations that I believe in. I am one of the longest serving photographers for the British Red Cross, covering everything from disaster relief to the help that they do in the community. I've produced several bodies of work with International Alert, an independent peace-building organisation that I've collaborated for 15 years with. This has included documenting their work in Liberia, where they supported various programs to build stability and long-term peace, and in the Caucasus, travelling with an envoy of distinguished peacemakers to the countries of Azerbaijan, Armenia, and the disputed territory of Nagorno-Karabakh, where I produced a series of portraits from each territory with the overall title of "Conflict is not the division of land, but the division of people." In 2014, I was approached by the organisation Delagwa to document their work in Rwanda. Delagwa, along with the University of Colorado and the Rwanda Ministry of Health, embarked on an ambitious project to distribute water filters and fuel-efficient cook stoves across the country. The programme monitored the use of water filters and cook stoves, with the data being used in a health impact study. During this assignment, I met and worked with Leonce Biamana, who was then a public health advisor to Delagwa. We travelled together in Rwanda for the project, became friends and kept in touch as Leonce left for the United States, first to become director of Western New York Center for Survivors of Torture, and then when he joined TASSC. TASSC is a coalition of torture survivors representing countries and ethnic groups throughout all parts of the world, and whose mission is to end the practice of torture wherever it occurs and support survivors as they empower themselves, their families and communities wherever they are. Over the years, we talked about collaborating on a project to build awareness of torture through photographs. Leon suggested that I look through the website to gain a better understanding of their work and the survivors that they support. The stories of the survivors were incredibly powerful. However, the pictures alongside these only showed what each person looked like rather than who they were. Charitable organisations have had to step up to nail down what their purpose is and shout about the unique difference they make in the world, from the culture through to the communications. Charitable organisations must recognise that they need to communicate and empower the viewer with the belief that their impact will make a difference. My starting point was, survivors are the strongest and most effective voice in the campaign to abolish torture. When I talk to people about the work, their initial reaction is usually the same, as they imagine gritty black and white portraits that show harrowing faces. They assume that I will be presenting them as victims rather than survivors. I wanted to capture a series of beautiful and powerful portraits that each person would be proud of. The creative idea evolved naturally as I began to learn more. Not all survivors want to be recognised. In the past, photographers have focused on scars or asked them to hold up family photos of people that they've lost in front of their face to hide their identity. I wanted to produce a series of portraits with a common theme and appearance. I rejected the idea of adjusting the lighting to obscure the survivor's identity, as this is often how criminals are presented on television. I also wanted something that would refer to their past on a deeper emotional level. Once I had the basic concept of projecting images onto the survivors, it was a natural and obvious course to ask them to select and supply personal images that had a significance for them. The portraits are of the head and shoulders only. I asked each person to remove any clothing around this area, as I realised that it was distracting in the final portraits. I also wanted the projected images to become part of the survivor's skin. The projected images show familiar places lost to the individuals as they look forward to the uncertainty and challenges as immigrants in a new country. The portraits ask viewers to look beyond preconceived notions about refugees and asylum seekers and see them as individuals with very human connections to place and home. The pictures are accompanied with statements that capture the courage and determination that led each person to seek assistance through TASSC International. I spent a day in the studio working out the technical aspects of the photography. I tried various different backgrounds before settling on a neutral grey. Whilst the projected image bleeds across the survivor and background, the grey tones down the image to place an emphasis on the survivor. I also experimented with the distance between the subject and the background. If you increase this distance, you begin to get shadowing from the subject. However, when the subject is too close to the background, the image becomes very two-dimensional. It was important for me to focus the projected image onto the survivor and have the background slightly softer. The final portraits are created by a refined method of double projecting the survivor's photos onto them in the background to eliminate their shadows. Each survivor supplies me with a selection of photos to be projected before the photography. These pictures are scanned and digitally adjusted for projection quality. If the survivor wishes to remain anonymous, then I first look to obscure their identity by positioning the projected image in a way that disguises their features. If this is not possible, then I ask the survivor to position themselves in a way that they feel comfortable with and hides their identity. The image is a co-creation rather than just a photograph by me. The post-production is also a collaboration between me and the survivor. I review the portraits and edit them down to a sensible number to present to the survivors. Some survivors are very particular about the portrait, whilst others are happy for me to select. Once I have gained final approval from the survivors, the images are refined in Photoshop, incorporating any adjustments requested by the survivors. During this process, the stories and explanations behind the projected pictures are collected. I ask each survivor to complete a model release form with a series of questions with the option to include as much or as little information as each person feels comfortable with. The model release form is set out to give each survivor the option to withdraw from the project if their situation changes. Portraits of Resilience is a long-term project that I've been working on for 6 years, currently features survivors from Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. The pandemic has complicated what was already an incredibly challenging campaign. This is a self-funded personal project that I've been collaborating with TASSC International on. The aim was always to stimulate debate, raise awareness about the practice of torture that continues to be used by governments around the world. As a long-term project, I'm looking to expand on the selection of portraits that are currently in the series. Even yesterday, I photographed 4 more portraits in the room next door. I would like to take this opportunity to reach out to organisations working with survivors to get in contact and become part of this campaign. Of course, this extends to other organisations or individuals that would like to support in any other way. Some of the portraits have been shown in art festivals and acknowledged in various photography awards. This is an art campaign that we want to show to as many people as possible, wherever that might be. I want the portraits to be seen in places where they will generate the conversation that can propel action. I would love to show the series in other spaces, as well as have it published editorially and as a book to send to governments around the world. If you can help realise any of these, then I'd love to hear from you. Portraits of Resilience has received some incredible feedback from notable art critics, with comments including, it uses a unique visual language that is fitting with the sensibility of the subject matter, and it is a work of responsible documentary photography that lacks the predatory and voyeuristic perspective that often plagues the genre. However, I don't want to end with a quote about the photography. I want to finish with an email from one of the survivors that has far more value. Dear Jonathan, thank you for your photo voice with the portraits that tell our stories. The picture that I selected is now a living photo with deep-rooted memories. I can see my family and everything else that I left behind as part of me in this art. This gives me the courage, hope, and inspiration to continue. Thank you, TASSC, for supporting such a wonderful project with Jonathan. This picture will be part of my life. I will now hand you over to Alysha Tagert, the Acting Director of TASSC International.
Thank you, Jonathan. I also have notes with me as well, so I'm joining Jonathan in that. My name is Alysha Tagert, and I'm the Acting Executive Director at TASSC International, which is the Torture Abolition Survivor Support Coalition. So we'll just say TASSC for short. It's much easier to say that. I am delighted to be here this evening and celebrate the opening of this exhibit of the Portraits of Resilience. Thank you, Jonathan, for your incredible work. And even as you reflected in what you said of really holding the survivors' dignity and bringing them to the center and the beauty that survivors have to share with the world. Thank you to the Phillips collection, to the staff here. I really appreciate all of you and the opportunity that TASSC has to be here. And I'm also really grateful to the survivors, number one, for who you are and how you have changed my life as I've done this work throughout the years, but also those around you. And I'm also really thankful that Leonce is here too, who is the previous executive director of TASSC. So TASSC began in 1998 from a small group of survivors. After briefly meeting over lunch, they realized that they have a lot in common and knew that they needed one another to heal from the torture that they had experienced. TASSC was founded by survivors of torture for survivors of torture and remains the only survivor-led organization. Our model is a survivor-centered approach to healing and ending torture worldwide. We work with survivors through the journey of healing by coming alongside in all aspects, from legal assistance, mental health counseling, social services, employment assistance, and community. TASSC truly is a home away from home, a place to heal, moving survivors from a place of isolation to connection with one another and the greater community around them. Resilience is a great word to use, Jonathan. It is about overcoming in the face of diversity, adversity, pain, and hardship. And Dennis Levy says that all humans somewhere within have the urge to be heroic, to transcend circumstances, to develop one's powers, to overcome adversity, to stand up and be counted. We see this in these photos. A beauty of overcoming, a connection to meaning and value, and a story to tell. Where torturers sought to destroy, take away dignity and humanity, and to keep these amazing survivors hidden, these photos say, here I am not silent, I have overcome, I am a survivor. Thank you again for having TASSC here to partner in this project. And thank you to the survivors for continuing to inspire us every day with your courage to share your story. I want to say that we see you, we hear you, we are with you as we all work together for a torture-free world. I'm going to hand it over to Hajir to share a little bit about this project.
Thank you, Alysha. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and thank you, TASSC, for everything that you do. And like Jonathan and Alysha, I need to start organizing myself and writing some things. I'm used to just talking from my heart, and I think that's a more way of like getting your point across. My name is Hajir El-Sheikh. I am a torture survivor from Sudan. I'm still, but I was an activist, a human rights and a woman rights activist from Sudan throughout the 30-year dictatorship of al-Bashir's regime. And I'm sure many of you following the situation currently in Sudan, we fought a very vicious regime who not just torture, raped, killed, burned villages and people alive. I have a personal first-hand experience with that, starting early age in high school. I was detained for a long period of time. I was hung from a tree, beating from my head to my toe until I felt numb. You get to the point that you don't feel anything and you start smelling your own blood, you know, and they keep doing it. That is specific moment, it's still dear to my heart, because every time I talk about it, my voice starts cracking. And that's one thing you need to realize about torture survivors. You can never be the same as before or previous your experience, but you get to cope, and with the help of organizations like TASSC, and that's why I became a board member with TASSC and many other organizations that not help me directly, doesn't have to necessarily help me directly, but they're doing something that close to my heart. I'm still an activist. I use my voice, and I am loving the expression that Jonathan used, because as a torture survivor, the first thing you lose is your voice. And getting that back, it requires a lot of courage. It requires a lot of work, not just by you. You have to be open for that first. But then having services like TASSC, and it might sound cheesy, but truly having therapy, having people that listen to you and make you feel you're not alone. Meeting with other torture survivors, meeting with people that truly care, not necessarily because they've been through what you've been through, but they hold your hand and they tell you it's going to be okay. And sometimes that's all you need to keep going. You know, I can go on and tell you examples and how many times that I've been through torture. If you look closely to my forehead here, you will see a scar. That scar, it was during college. I was a public speaker. I was the only female spokesperson for the Democratic Party in Sudan University at that time. And being a woman in Sudan is hard enough during our time. But being a woman activist who were trying to educate, raise awareness, and tell people that you have rights. This is they feel threatened by you, and they try to basically shut you up with any way or mean. Putting me in detention center in jail did not do the job enough. Beating and doing all of that, it only made me wanted to speak more and wanted to educate more about the situation. During my last year in college, I was standing in front of a big group of students and talking to them, and the government with the militia right now came to the college, start hitting us. I got hit with a metal bar. My head was bust open, blood broke out, and I didn't remember how I got to the place that I was. I was carried by a student, but that was the last time when they basically made it clear that if I was to be found, I would be killed. And with the help of the UN and other organizations, I was, I fled the country to Egypt, where I stayed there as a refugee until I got my second chance to come here to the United States. You know, this whole thing, we thought it was over after the current revolution happened in 2018, and they took down the third-year dictatorship. But to our surprise, that Hamidti and the Janjaweed, the junta, who caused the Darfur genocide, who killed and tortured people, he's the second chair in Sudan right now. And we are back to square one, having a military and a dictatorship that ruling the country, where they start to doing the same thing and uglier than my time with torture, raping, and doing all of that. And most of my family are activists. But last thing I'll say before I hand it over to Sufi is my niece was just kidnapped, and she stayed close to 1 week where she was sexually assaulted. You know, the gun was pointed to her head. She was threatened. We did not know where she was. So we did a campaign. I start sharing like an hour after she disappeared. TASSC, Alliance jumped into it. Shafi'i and Manal and many other activists start sharing it. And that put a pressure, and the government let her go because they don't need this publicity. So our voices, we cannot take that for granted. You cannot take how strong your voice can be, how strong a social media campaign or a photo or an exhibit just like this can make a difference in someone's life. I seem to talk a lot, so if you have any question, we can, I can collaborate, but I'll hand it to Sophie. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Phillips, and also thank you, TASSC team. But more thank you, our friend Jonathan. Jonathan, you are very unique for this work, because I'm witness of this task. When we started, we wasn't think about that ways grow, and that way the people come and contribute and support us. This is a very unique project. I would love to speak about my own story, which is, you can read it in this book. So I want to give some more ideas which will be maybe helpful to the TASSC and our friend Jonathan, and especially this our movement and struggle. Before I was coming here, I was thinking about few things. One was the most important thing, this camera. Camera is more stronger than Kalashnikov. Imagine, and that's why I would be very believe it, Jonathan is more important than Putin. The things in the world is going on, which is very much challenging, and we need the photographer and activism which can be helpful to our movement. Imagine when America was dropping the bombs in Vietnam, there was only one naked photo of the woman is changed the American whole society in universities, in colleges, and the American common people come out, and America is the same, which was their leaderships was dropping the bomb, but the common people were on the street, and those photos actually play the most important role. Imagine in Afghanistan, the same things. How was that happening? But one photo of the National Geographic, a lady with the blue eyes, and that is also changed the whole situation. And same way, when the Pakistan was dropping the bombs and killing the Bangladeshi people, my friend was in Bangladesh, she was here, or I don't know, is she still here or not. If you go to the Bangladesh and see the museum, And the same way, how was the Pakistan, that time was one Pakistan. Bangladesh was the East Pakistan and the other was the West Pakistan. But the photographer, because West Pakistan was thinking that Bangladeshi people are not Muslim, true Muslim, and they check their circumcisions. And that photo came in the media, and that will be actually change the whole phenomena. So how the photography is very important, like artist is more important than those dictators. And I believe that one. That is the role of the photography. And I can say, I suggest, Jonathan, this will be, if you continue this one, maybe, and he asked me that if you can see any other survivors, not here many, but many other places, and I will be happy to cooperate with you and help you and coordinate with you and give you more survivors, and you can collect those photos, and maybe that will be a very unique book. And you are there's another Jonathan too, was in Rwanda, Jonathan from Israel, right? Born. He also took some photography too. So I think my suggestion, another, I will be happy to help you in the Geneva or New York, some kind of the same program. We can organize it together with I'm very much active over there, and it will be, because that way also we can promote our work and activism too. So this is I think is the photography, which when I wasn't know that this was going to be happening in the TASSC. So one day I was visiting and I saw the Jonathan and my friend Shafe, and then this was surprising for me, and never thought about when I was active in Sindh. Sindh is the southern part of Pakistan, which is many people don't know that the Sindh exists a country or as a place. When people ask me who you are, I never say that myself I'm Pakistani. I said myself Sindhi. They say Sindhi, C-I-N-D-Y. I say no, I'm Sindhi, S-I-N-D-H-I. So Sindhis are actually nowadays struggling for their own human rights, and especially over their major issues, info disappearances, and we are working on that, and on that basis, like torture survivors or families, those, and I can be happy to help you, Jonathan, on that one too. Regarding my story, I really would like to share with a few glimpses. I grew up in the Sindh, which is the place is called the Hyderabad, where I was born. I was a student activist and comes from the very poor peasantry family. My mother was sewing the clothes. My father was a bus conductor, and also he was a tailor master too, and work in the fields. And when I was born and grew up in the village, there was no electricity, no sanitations or no gas, nothing. But my parents' dream was that to give the education and to reach some places I can raise the voice for the poor peasantry families and poor people. And that was actually brought me more active in the universities and colleges. And then my dream was that to go every villages, 70,000 villages, to go there and recite the poetry, which I follow it. But over there was the dictatorship supported by our friends US, and to give them weapons, give them trainings, give them money, everything, because to counter the Russia. And I wasn't know that time much that kind of the politics, but I went to read the left-oriented books, and also I go to the American Center too. There was American Cultural Centers, very nice, very cold. Outside is very hot, inside is nice. And then over there, I saw the two photos. One was Abraham Lincoln, and other was Martin Luther King. And that actually kind of fascinated to me. I read more about the Martin Luther King and Abraham Lincoln. And I'm very lucky I came in this country and stay where the place is not far my home, where the Martin Luther King and Lincoln give me always inspiration. Whenever I feel stress or feel a little bit desperate and thinking about my past, I always go and walk that area and get inspiration. And it gives me more motivation to, I hope I'm not taking much time, but you can read my story about in this book more. And I want to just say thank you very much. If you have a question, I will be happy to reply. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. My name is Leonce. I'm the former executive director of TASSC, and I just want to say thank you to Phillips Collection. This is really something we dreamed about when we were started this program, and I want to thank survivors who contributed to this work. It would have not been possible without them, and we have really focused on giving survivors the power to decide what type of photos they want, what type of background, what should be in the story, So I think Jonathan and everyone in that project really focused on giving survivors the first and the final word on that work. So this is a process that was collaborative, and we really appreciate Phillips, the curator, and the team that helped us, millions of meetings, but we finally did it. So thank you so much. I understand that this is time for questions, a Q&A. This is open for questions.
Hi, this is Nehemiah, Director of Community Engagement at the Phillips Collection. We do have a few questions from the online visitors, but I do want to open it up to the audience. So if there's questions in the audience, we're going to start there.
Yeah, hi. I have a question for Sufi and Hajir. Can you tell us a little bit about the pictures that you selected to be superimposed on you? Why did you select those pictures? A little bit of background about that.
Very good question, actually. I was actually, my mother died, and I went to meet my brother and my father and my nephew. So I wasn't know that my will be the last meeting with my brother. So he said goodbye to me. He was crying. I never thought about that after that he is going to get killed. So they killed him. Still, I don't know why they killed him, because he hasn't anything to do with my things. I'm active. I'm against the tyranny and against the oppressors, against the injustice. He was a social activist. He was a medical doctor. And I always, when call him and ask him, you better to he do the social work, but he was my brother, and I was active here, raising the issues. But that my last meeting and last photo, and he put it on the Facebook. And I put the Facebook, and he wrote it, "Muh mein tu maujood azal khan." He wrote that in Sindhi, that you are in me from when this universe was built up. So, and after that, my last conversation, that was my last photo with him. And he put it that one, and he wrote that sentence. And my last conversation, I just asked him about the girls' school. We want to actually put it in our villages. He said, I'm doing my best and I'm trying my best. But that was the actually last photo with him. And so I had so many photos, even because this is, when I was there, we don't have any camera or cell phone, these things. I was not the, I was a scholarship holder or the even teaching the students, but not a camera, not much photo things or these things. But this was our last meeting at the Dubai airport, and he was leaving but crying. And he took the photo and he gave it to me, sent it to me, and then he put it on also the Facebook. So when this project, and Jonathan asked me that if you have any, then I like that photo. And we were only two brothers, no sister, no other. My mother died, and then my brother got killed, and my father got shocked, and means he was also can't tolerate the whole pain and suffering. He died, and my brothers had only one son. He also mysteriously killed. But my mother is always talk about my brother. She loves more. She loves us both, but I see she loves. So what she say, I love you both. But then actually, among the all photos, if you look at that one, that was the very nice. And then Jonathan put a very good energy in the way he did that one. And I really thankful to him, and that's why I select that photo. Thank you.
I think that's sum it up. That's why we need to have conversation, and that's why we need to do stuff like that. My photo is an uplifting one. Both of my girls, just like Sufi's saying, you want to start a new life, and you want to be able to provide for your family the way that you did not have, like with freedom and ability to pursue your dreams and all of that. So both of my girls wanted to be actors and models, and I was driving 300 miles to New York and back in one day for 2 years. And they did, the youngest one was in Sesame Street, and they were in big commercials, and when their careers start to hit high, and she was requested by Nickelodeon, she decided not to do it. She's like, I'm done acting, so. As a mother, you know, you're sitting and looking at her like, really? I wasted this time and energy and money, and now you don't want to do it. But I was very happy, even with the driving, 7-hour driving a day, twice a week. Sometime I'm in the Holland Tunnel, coming home to Pennsylvania, and they call me to come back for a call back. I kept going. So they were my motivation. That I wanted to give them what I did not get and better. And I am happy that they're both happy, successful, and I just wanted to show that positive picture.
Thank you. A virtual audience member asked, is there a sense of community amongst the survivors? How did you come to find TASSC?
Well,
I guess that's open to everyone.
I actually was thinking about to first twist, even during my conversation, the speaking. But let me, say our sister Diana. She was the inspiration for us. She was the first person. And I learned through my mentor in Washington, D.C. We share our office. His name is Dr. John Salzberg. He was working in CVT, where is our friend Leonce is now director. He was the he was actually doing the lobbying in the Congress. He and I was sharing the office. So one day he asked me, Sufi, I want to take you a meeting, and there are human rights activists. And that was the Guatemala Human Rights Commission, I think, in Northeast, I think, where our office is right now, very close to that one. But that time was not TASSC. So Sister Diana, myself, and our friend Harold Nelson, and Sister Alice. So we were few people, and one other, my friend Connie came later on. We were few friends, and discuss about the 26th June, International Day of actually against the torture from the United Nations. And that day, we celebrate against the torture, and then later on, we just sit down and thought about why not we can start an organization. And that way, I was the one of the founder member, one of them, and started. And I'm very happy that I'm still continue working with the TASSC, and it's my dream this organization one day should get the Nobel Prize. That will be my actually some way we can continue struggle and support. That's why. Thank you.
For me, I was introduced by Xavi, who were working with TASSC, and I attended the Survivor Week. And after that, I attended the advocacy with Andrea. I got to know her and fell in love with everyone there. And then I became the board member with TASSC. And the main reason I am lucky and honored to be part of TASSC is their vision and mission aligned with everything that I believe in and I want to continue doing. So I hope that answered the question.
Thank you. What made you want to participate in the project to begin with? The project that Jonathan has.
Go ahead, Sonny.
Well, I like mentioned in my conversation that I was regularly sometimes visit to the TASSC, and I went there and I saw Shafi and Jonathan they were doing, and they said we are taking this actually photos, and I think that before me there was already few photograph pendings. The project was happened. So they asked me, and I said I will be happy to, no problem, and because I want to raise this issues and bring more awareness. So, and I have no problem to raise this issue, and so because it's if we just hold this our suffering or pain, it will more difficult for us. So it is better to come out in a different way, either in photography or music or dance or in any form, in any, I walk from New York to Washington, D.C. 350 miles against the torture, and I raising different places about the torture issue and against info-discipline. And again, I'm going to walking from Toronto to Ottawa, 424 kilometers next month from May 28 to June 15. So photography, that's also one tool we using as an awareness. I think Jonathan is a really great resource for us. So I also feel that's a good way, and that's why I joined it.
Basically the same thing, raising awareness, educating people. It's easy to not care about an issue if you don't go through it yourself or you don't know someone. When you put a face and a story, it will make it more personal to you. So I think having this exhibit and just having the conversation, people talking, listening to survivors' story, knowing it's not, I hope this for no one to go through torture or anything, but it make you aware, and it make you humble, it make you appreciate your life, and it make you want to be human and do your part, whatever your part is, taking a picture, talking, sharing, whatever you do. So,
kind of building off of that question, as survivors, what does it mean to have agency and how your image is presented to the rest of the world?
Agency as organization, you mean, or?
I think I mean agency as in control over how the image is being presented. Yes.
Okay.
Can you translate some other way? My English is weak.
How, you know, the fact that, you know, Jonathan asked you, how do you want me to do your picture, like, that you can make the choice?
Yeah.
What does it mean to you that you have to make the choice yourself not other person making the choice for you. What does it mean to you?
What mean to me about this?
Yeah, that you were the main person who make decision in this process.
Yes. Well, you see, we are human beings. We have a different angles of our life, and this our life and this project and these things. I'm very confident that, and I sure this things at least when it goes to different places, at least in my own country, my own community, or in Sindh, or even neighboring country, means the places like Balochistan or Bangladesh or others, they will see, if they will read and there will be the photos, they will see, they will give means encouragement. They will give the encouragement, and I hope I understand the questions, and is there what I
Like having control on choosing.
So you selected the photo and you selected, you could put your story forward. How did that make you feel? That you?
But I feel this means the things which I chosen, and our nature put me in this work, that both means my consciousness and nature. It put me in these things to stop this horrible things, very terrible things, right? And I'm very happy that I'm doing this work, and with Jonathan and with TASSC, and imagine, because if you see the movie and if you read the book, or even if you the photo, but the photo which I was in the under torture, those photos, those moments, those things are, when I see, that kind of the things is remain in our, it cannot go, it remain, right? It continue. But it is our inner side that we have to change that grief and sorrows and torture into strength. It takes a time. The way I'm now speaking, it took me a time. It takes a lot of time and reflections and energies, walks and things with a different way, readings. But that is the common people, and I see in my community many even women, many even people who feel more courageous, and definitely when I will be hoping that if someone from my community will translate this one in Sindhi language, they will feel more. You can see, even Jonathan didn't think about that. Sindhi is going to translate, and his project is going to be in that one with permission, right? With permission, of course, not.
Absolutely.
That's right. So bring them. Right. Yeah.
Having the control, that's one thing that people lose. Like I said, you lose your voice, you lose control over your choices. So I think subconsciously, Jonathan, when he asked, like you provided few pictures and he said, choose the best. A lot of people take this for granted, but for someone went through a dictatorship, that things are decided for you. So it's a simple way of giving you the control back, giving you the ability to decide and choose. So does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I would add that, seeing asylum seekers, refugees, sometimes people think that because someone doesn't speak good English, or they look this way or that way, that they're not smart people. But you find out those people are actually very smart people. They speak many more languages, and they done a lot of stuff. So I think they can think for themselves. They can choose what they want to be, where they want to go. They can choose everything in their life. They just need support. They need, explaining things to them, and they can make their own choices. I think that's why we really made sure that this is captured in this project, and I'm very confident that every survivor who participated can say that they chose every thing in every step until today. Thank you.
They've already said is just a reflection of what I've been hearing from survivors about around this project, and how it's really meaningful to be able to share an experience or things that you've been through in a different way, right? Where words cannot always capture all of the things. And so this is, I've sat with many, many survivors over the years and who have shared, who have begin that process of sharing their experience in a community setting, whether it's with their clinical case manager or someone else or a fellow survivor. And it's really hard to put these things into words. And so now we have these beautiful images that where I can, as an observer, as one who's not a survivor, I can look at them and it brings so much life. There's a story behind it. There's so much more that can't really be captured fully in a conversation. And that's the beauty, I think, in these photos, and survivors have reflected that too to us during this project, of just how wonderful it is to say, I couldn't tell you, but I can see it, I can feel it, I can experience it as I look at this photograph, and that is what's been the beautiful part about this project.
Now I understand the question. So one photo is more than 1,000 words, I can say that way. I read somewhere, but I didn't see. Right? But the things is like now if because people don't have much, and if they see the photo and photo, that definitely will more attention. I like go to the art museum and these things, and people who means as a depth. So I think I'm very happy the part of this project. And
add to that, sorry for speaking too much, but most of the people, when they're being tortured or when they're being persecuted, they are told that you are nothing, you don't have a right to your own decision, you will never speak again. And this is another way. This project was also a kind of part of a healing process, where people are given back the power of choosing what they want to do and having that voice back. And so this was part of the project as well.
I have a question. What do you wish more people understood about you as a survivor of torture?
I'll go first.
No problem. I'm speaking too much. But
no, you're not.
Then I can. Yes,
I hope that people, anyone, not just when they talk to me or any other survivor, when you look at any person that is different than you in any shape or form, to know that they have a story and to want to know them, not to judge them by what you have in your mind, a stereotype, or put them in a box. Everyone got to this point and they have a journey, whether it's something that you agree with or you disagree with, it's worth to know, and then you can judge them based on that. I wanted people to know that, having your voice and having the ability to talk, like when you sit and talk to a survivor, or it doesn't have to be a torture survivor. I work with domestic violence survivors, and it's the same. It's a process. You don't want to rush. You don't want to transfer the control from the dictator, whether it's a torture or a domestic violence situation. You want to give them their life or self back first, and give them the time. Some people might not able to talk, and it takes time. I'm always a talker, so it wasn't a problem to me. But a lot of people that are reserved, a lot of people that doesn't mean they did not go through pain or torture, or they didn't have a rough life. People express a different way. portrait, pictures, art. So get to know the person, so I guess.
The questions keep pouring in, but I do want to acknowledge that we have a live audience here. So if there's anyone that has a question, you can raise your hand and we'll bring a mic to you at any point during this conversation as well.
One more question from the audience, virtual audience. Can you tell me more about what TASSC does and how people can help?
What people?
Can help.
Just people,
Oh,
how
yes.
people can help. So TASSC is, so TASSC is, and it's awesome. It's really actually really cool to have like a founding member of TASSC here right next to me, and then even from Leonce, who's the former executive director, and I came to TASSC in 2011, actually first as an intern. And so it is a really wonderful organization. As you said, it's I'm in the interim because we're looking for another survivor director of the organization. And so it's a organization that is founded by survivors of torture, as I said, for survivors of torture. And in our work, we there's lots of different elements of what we do. Like I said, we have mental health care, legal assistance, clinical case management, advocacy work that we do that you can get involved in as well. That's a really big part of what we do. Andrea, who's our advocacy coordinator, is here tonight. And so, who does amazing work in that regard. So I would say one way that you can get involved is reach out, go on the website. You can always give. I will ask you to give. I will unashamedly ask you to give to the organization and the work that we do because it's really amazing and really powerful. And so, yeah, please reach out. You can reach out to me for more information, and I'm always happy to share more. Leonce, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would say that, well said, Alysha. TASSC is helping today more than 300 survivors. So the people here is just a small portion, but more than 300 survivors, and it takes more than $5,000 per year to support one survivor. And you can hear how it's a lot of support that we get from the community, so you can be one of those supporters of TASSC. And in the last few years, we have helped at least, since the beginning, 5,000 survivors. So you can help us to continue to do this work as little as you can. If you have $10 or $5,000, $100,000, that would help. Thank you.
But I would like to add something different. It depends upon the most important thing, what I have in my idea, the creativity. Like Jonathan has a creativity, the innovation like photography. So if any person in the audience listening to us and going to visiting on website, they also think about the creative way. Like I went to Geneva, over there I found that over there the disappearances peoples, the community, they gathered there and they actually found with the government, with the mayor, they asked them that a park in the name of the disappeared people. If the people can be in any, put the tree of the survivor's name, or the poetry, or the book, or the article, and Washington Times, Washington Post, New York Times, so many ways to be actually brought this issue, bring the evidence. Talk to their congressmen or senators, or them that the letters, many ways. So it depends upon the person to person what way can be possible. They can help us and support us. In different countries, not only in the US, but many other places too. That's all.
And we do have one final question from our virtual audience. Is it still difficult for TASSC to function amidst the pandemic?
I think for all of us, it's been difficult for all of us to function in the midst of a pandemic. And Leonce can speak to this a little bit more as was still the director during COVID, but I am really thankful that we have figured out how to reach survivors on a virtual platform and being able to do that. And I think it's just expanded our ability to reach more survivors, to be honest. It's been a really great, especially those with barriers for transportation barriers or things like that before where it was difficult to come to the office. The thing that's been difficult through the pandemic is the survivor to survivor connection that is so crucial and important to who TASSC is. And so when I mentioned in the beginning about TASSC being a home away from home and a place for survivors to gather where you can just, we say this phrase in America, where you can just let your hair down and you can just be. That's how you feel when you get home. And for many of our survivors that we serve, they don't have a place like that. And that's what TASSC provides. And so the pandemic really made that difficult for survivors to be able to do that. But we are happy to say that we have opened our office again, which has been awesome, a couple days a week. And it's been great having survivors walk in the door, grab their coffee, sit on the couch, use the computer. Like, this is their space. And so we're excited to be able to continue to cultivate that and open the doors back up. But that's probably been the hardest, most challenging thing. But also, it's expanded our ability to really reach more people virtually, which has been great.
Office in Maryland.
Oh, yes, and we opened a new office in Maryland, which is really awesome. We cannot wait to share more about that. But really expanding our services in Maryland as well, where many of our survivors are both DC residents and they're also Maryland residents too, and Virginia, of course, but many of them live in the Silver Spring area, and it allows for them to go to a different location.
Yeah, thank you, Alysha. I will add that during the pandemic, actually, as TASSC board, we have our board chair here and myself, we were able to see how much potential our staff has, because they kind of brought their creativity in how we can continue to work and provide services to clients, and they made it happen. The second thing we realized is the level of resilience of survivors, because most of the time they were the one telling us, it's gonna be fine, it's gonna be fine. So they kind of actually encouraged us to continue to do what we do, and we made it happen with them. So I would say that really survivors and amazing staff has allowed TASSC to continue to work during difficult times.
We just have some comments from the chat from folks online that we'd like to share. Thank you so very much for being willing to share your experiences. You have endured and you have survived. That is a tribute to your humanity and strength. Yes, the survivors and the work of TASSC is something we don't know much about. Beautiful photos as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Jonathan, I'll open the floor back up to you if there's anything you would like to say, or if any of you have anything you would like to say in conclusion.
I just want to say NGOs are difficult to work with, and so thank you, Jonathan, for working with us.
And thank you, guys.
And we just really appreciate, I just want to say that I really appreciate Jonathan for his hard work and for his volunteer time and the way that he has worked with us through a pandemic to try to make this project continue, and so thank you.
I think I should apologise to you for the amount of emails that I write, and the length of some of my emails are phenomenal these days. Trying to organise everything,
yes.
and yeah, the amount of Zoom calls and all those kind of things. But tonight's made it all worthwhile. I feel it's been incredibly special tonight, and there's a great energy in the room, and I hope that everyone's feeling it online as well as the audience here.
And I saw this whole, so Jonathan, if any our little bit from our organization or from our side, don't be desperate, or this will be a long way to go.
Yeah.
So you be patiently work with us, and I'm very confident this our together. I will, if the next program, I will tell you, see, now this is even different than previous one and more better. Right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Phillips.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Phillips.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Phillips. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.